Hey everybody, Ty here. Hope everyone's doing well. This video's going up late because I've had a lot of technical issues. Really meant to do this yesterday, but it's been a pretty similar deal. The computer's been acting really strange lately. The internet as a whole across my area has been. But in any case, though, big pattern change is actually expected here, so we're going to have quite a bit to unpack here. I'm going to try to keep this as efficient as I can, though. There are some things we need to discuss here. We do have several days of slight risk plus potential for severe weather, but this looks a lot more intimidating than it does right now, at least, than it actually is for right now. At least at the moment, that's what I would say. You can always get events that can overperform, so you always have to be watchful whether it's a marginal risk or slight risk or beyond, of course. So, of course, we'll be going over that. Do have some days of elevated fire danger, but for the most part, we're gonna see things kind of drop off with that. I remember a few days, I think last week it was, where we had multiple days of critical, and even an extreme was possible. A little further back, I think, even. But in any case, for today, we do have our enhanced risk. This is a hail threat. The hail threat is ongoing at this point. We've had about 40 reports today, so that's pretty much verified at this juncture. And I would expect things to slow down. Hail tends to be more prominent during the early to mid part of the afternoon. By the time you guys are seeing this is going to probably drop off. Do have a wind threat to go along with that and a small hatch risk area. So there is a chance that we could get some stronger winds with one of these storms before the night is out. As far as the tornado threat's concerned, do have a 2% area. Threat remains pretty low. I think the timing is pretty similar to the wind threat, which I would expect to be maybe between, let's say, the time you're seeing this for maybe a couple hours onward. Then let's go to day 2. We have a pretty similar deal here. Hatch risk for hail, it's the main threat tomorrow. Do have a damaging wind and a tornado threat being the lowest right now, and the smallest area being confined over towards parts of northeastern Colorado and southwestern parts of Nebraska. Do need to be watchful of this area. Small chance it gets upgraded, but I wouldn't expect anything of major significance out of this. So we go towards day 3, we do have a hatch risk area that pops up here as well. Since we're past the 48-hour mark, we can't really see particularly which type. At this point, I would say hail and damaging winds are the main threats. Tornadoes can't be ruled out, though. So, again, another all hazards possible kind of day, but I wouldn't expect anything of major significance at this point in time. We'll make update videos on this as needed. Then here's our day 4 slight risk to go along with that, and it's a subsequent risk to the Sunday setup here. The Sunday setup, for the most part, is focused on, of course, the Red River regions here. So between Fort Sill, Wichita Falls, and Abilene, pretty similar setup. I would say mainly hail with a potential for some damaging winds here. Any sort of storm that could really get itself organized may become supercellular, increase the tornado threat, but that really is looking like that would be more of a nowcast situation. Nothing that can really hammer down at this range at the moment here. On days 5 through 8 here, we just have predictability too low, so we'll kind of just in that wait and see mode with these days as of right now. Again, update videos will come as needed. As far as the upper air pattern is concerned as a whole, a big shift is actually about to occur here. We have this trough that's coming in, nothing very stout from this, of course, and this is what's going to also help keep that severe weather threat relegated to a minimum, especially as we head into next week here. But these troughs are going to start to come in and kind of hang around the eastern half of the U.S. here. So east of the Mississippi, expect shower and storm activity to increase and also the temperatures to drop off as well, especially as we get towards the very end of the month and heading into June here, which it's pretty surreal to think about that we're already this far along into the year. It's happening so fast. But this first week of June here, you can see that there's a pretty notable trough that pops up here and a big ridge that occurs out towards the west. This is almost kind of like a little bit of a small block, but this isn't going to necessarily slow down severe weather entirely, but it's going to bring it down to below average standards, I guess you would say. If you're a storm chaser, you're probably freaking out saying, no, it's over. Now, down the line, there is another change expected, but we'll talk about that in the June outlook that's going to be coming up soon. But if we were to go ahead and look at a slightly lower level of the atmosphere, looking at that upper air map, you can already tell that we don't have a lot of large-scale ascent or lift because of those lack of upper air troughs. But in the mid-levels, though, we still have those short waves coming into play here. With those short waves, we'll be able to still get initiation for storms here. Do I think they'll be of the significant outbreak type variety? Absolutely not. But those isolated storms are still something you need to watch. They won't necessarily be any slouch, especially over towards these regions, considering the fact that these will have plenty of energy to still work with here. But you need a little bit more than just a lot of moisture and some instability in order to get these storms to really take off here and become those outbreak type storms that everyone worries about. But even then, you always got to remember it only takes really one storm, and I know a lot of you out here know this. So as we go forward, you can see that plenty of moisture remains, as we just mentioned here. The Gulf moisture works its way all the way up, even into the Ohio Valley and into the central plains here, right towards the end of the month. So like I said, we'll have plenty of energy due in large part to this. It's not going to be, but like I said, with the lack of troughs and the lack of forcing here, aka large scale ascent, I'm not expecting any major outbreak type of events as of right now through this stretch. Could things uptrend as we go further along? Absolutely. But things are looking better than they've been. I'll say that much. Now, the biggest topic to me, the biggest story that I think is going to come from this upcoming trend here, mainly is going to be the temperatures. Notice how everybody's pretty warm right now, unless you're over towards the Central Plains. The Central Plains right now, as we head into this weekend, we're dealing with highs that are in the mid 60s and even upper 50s here. So it's going to be feeling quite nice for a lot of us for Memorial Day weekend. Eventually, we'll see this shift out towards the east for areas anywhere past the Mississippi here. We were well entrenched in the 70s into the 80s to close out the month, and then watch how quickly towards the end of the month we start seeing those 60s and even some 70s, even some 60s starting to pop in even towards my own area, which I have zero complaints about. Get another trough to come in to follow up as we head into the beginning of June here before we eventually start to recover once more. So June could be one of those wildly months in its own right here. I do think for the most part still going to be right at about average, maybe slightly above for a lot of these regions, but there are going to be some cool days mixed in here, so definitely need to be paying close attention. Depending on where you are, you still may not want to put those jackets away for those cold mornings either. If you're up towards the northeast or northwest in particular, you might get blindsided by a morning or two and end up getting sick if you aren't careful. But we were to go ahead and kind of shift back towards severe weather mode ever so slightly. Like I said, storm chances and severe chances are low, but the wild card for me is always looking at the Cape here. This is a great measure of our instability, and there's plenty of areas where we have it. Of course, as I said before, it takes a lot more than just Cape or instability or moisture to get storms to fire. It's just one piece of the puzzle here, or one ingredient to the cake, whichever analogy you really want to go with. But like I said, we still have plenty of energy left over here as we head into June here. There are a few days, even though I'm not the biggest fan of looking at the instability here on the global models, where we're still seeing ridiculous numbers here. Of course, this is at range, but as of late, though, at least for this year, as far as global models are concerned, we've been seeing a lot more accuracy out of them and picking up higher instability levels. This isn't uncommon for this time of year either towards this region, but this is just kind of highlighting where we think the hot spot's going to be going forward here. So definitely need to be paying close attention to that as we continue to press on into the month of June. Now, final look at what the radar could be like, especially in the short range here. Here's our storm system. Here's our troublemaker. What this setup that we have, as I mentioned before, southeast looks like it's going to be a point of interest. and also the southern plains in regards to increased precipitation. So here's a great reflection of that as we go through the weekend. Here's Memorial Day itself. Nice little line of showers and thunderstorms that develop as well over towards the deep south and over towards the plains. We get into the start of the work week next week. Plenty of meandering showers and storms, few of which have the potential to be severe, but definitely uncertain on those modes as of right now. But one thing that I am certain of is over towards anywhere east of the Mississippi, the temperatures are going to drop. And then another interesting thing that I've made note of here is also towards the Rockies, where it's been relatively dry. Rain chances are starting to increase there as well. So interesting look ahead here for many parts of the country here. Might see some weather at times that you might not be used to as we go through that first week of June. So a lot of moving parts. Also, another wild card, of course, is the start of hurricane season, so we'll have to be keeping an eye on that going forward. So make sure you're staying tuned for those videos. Make sure you have the notification bell on. Make sure you hit that like button and that subscribe button. And if you would also hit that share button, that'd be great too. But I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, everybody take care and have a wonderful rest of your night.